Welcome to XYPN Radio, where your host Alan Moore brings you into a community of fee-only financial planners who want to profitably and successfully serve Gen X and Gen Y clients. If you're ready to get the knowledge you need from leaders in your field, learn from forward-thinking advisors, and take action on your own goals, XYPN Radio is the show for you. Here's your host.
Hey everyone, welcome to episode 3 of XYPN Radio. I am your host Alan Moore, and I am so excited and honored that you have taken the time to join us today for today's episode. This has been such a fun week, and we are not even close to done. As you know, it is launch week for XYPN Radio. We have 7 episodes going live this week featuring folks like Michael Kitces, Carl Richards, Mark Maurer, Jeff Rose, Eric Roberts, Jake Keebler, and today's guest, Sophia Bera. So as you may or may not know, Sophia Bera is the founder of Gen Y Planning, which is a virtual RIA that she started when she was just 30 years old. Keeping in mind that the average age of a financial advisor is in their late 50s, early 60s, depending on who you ask. That is an incredibly young age to start a financial planning firm. And she has a really interesting and unique backstory on how she got into financial planning. She was actually a theater kid, got her degree in acting, and thought she was going to be a starving artist and wanted to learn about personal finance, and that led her eventually to become a financial planner. You'll find in this interview that she actually views her theater background as her secret weapon, even though she was kind of laughed at and thought of as a joke whenever she first got into financial planning. And if you're struggling with the decision on whether or not to launch your own firm and what it's going to take, be sure to hang out all the way through this episode because you're going to get some really great words of encouragement from Sophia as we go through this interview. Before we jump into the interview, though, I want to give a quick shout out to our launch week sponsor, Low Load Insurance Services. Low Load provides assistance to fee-only advisors with life insurance, disability, annuities, and long-term care. You can check them out at llis.com. And also be sure to check out episode 5 for an in-depth interview with Mark Maurer, the CEO of Low Load Insurance Services. So, all right, without further ado, here is our interview with Sophia Bera. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of XYPN Radio. I am so thrilled to have Sophia Bera, who is the founder of Gen Y Planning, joining us today. Sophia, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
So as people probably know, Sophia and I actually go back a few years. We've been friends for a while and actually are in the same study group, which we will talk about. But before we kick off the actual interview, I do want to give a quick shout out to Soph because she is probably the number one reason that we ended up launching this podcast in the first place. She has been bugging me for, it's got to be 18 months now, that this was something that she really wanted to see us do within XY Planning Network and that sort of thing. So she's probably the reason that we're here. So thank you for the words of encouragement. Sometimes they weren't quite so nice encouragement, but encouragement nonetheless.
Yeah, well, you're welcome. I'm so excited to be a part of this and to be on the show and that you got this off the ground. It's fun to see it happening now.
So you have a very well-publicized story, which we will talk about how you get so much media attention. But I just want to take a step back and go back to your kind of where you came from in the financial planning world, because you have such an awesome story around how you discovered the profession. So just in an extended nutshell, let's go back to college and kind of what you studied, because you certainly didn't study to become a financial planner.
I did not. So I was an actor in my undergrad. I was a double major in theater and women's studies, and I did 15 full-length productions while I was in school.
What better way to become a financial planner than women's studies and theater? So
it's the fast track. You know.
So I'm assuming all theater kids now want to become financial planners.
Yes,
so
that's the issue, right? This field is flooded with actors. So.
How did you discover financial planning then as an actress?
I was determined not to be a starving artist, and I decided to sit in the personal finance section of Barnes & Noble in between studying my lines for Steel Magnolias and read every book on business and personal finance and entrepreneurship that I could. And I just started reading and learning about Roth IRAs and buying homes and paying down debt, building up savings. And I decided that when I graduated from college, I really wanted to buy a house. So I graduated at 21, bought a house 3 months later, and my friends started coming to me with all their financial questions. And I thought, this is interesting. I really liked helping people. I really liked talking to people about their money. My dad's a psychologist and family therapist, so he was, really great at talking with people, and it came really naturally to me. And I decided that I wanted to explore this profession a little bit more, and I heard about these CFP classes that you could take. So I started taking classes, and in my second course, I actually ended up studying for my midterm with somebody who was hiring at their financial planning firm. And they ended up bringing me in for an interview. I got my foot in the door at that firm, and that became my first job in financial planning. And they paid for the rest of my CFP classes, which, as a theater major, if you would have told me somebody would have paid for you to get a degree or to go to school, was just insane to me. And so that's how I got my foot in the door. And I worked in traditional financial planning firms for about 5 years in Minnesota.
So you signed up for CFP classes having absolutely no idea anything about financial planning as a profession and what you'd be doing, really, outside of the fact that it had to do with personal financial money, I guess.
Right. And I was seen as a total joke. Like, I would show up, I was waiting tables at the time and doing like 52 performances of The Rivals. So I was serving Tuesday through Saturday and doing shows Tuesday through Sunday with 2 shows on Sunday and taking CFP classes on Mondays. And so sometimes I would have like a Monday day shift right before class, and I would show up like in my server apron and like rush to class, and people just like, they thought I was a joke. They, like, the guys, like, there's a couple guys in the class that were just like these jerks that worked for, a big company that I don't like very much.
We can call out Ameriprise, because there's no other big company in Minneapolis. I'm fine with it.
So they would like tease me because they just thought I was a joke. And, but I really liked what I was learning. And I just knew that, in my first class, I really struggled because I didn't like the whole sales piece. I didn't want to sell people things that I didn't believe in. And, then I met this guy named Scott Oath, who became my mentor. And I met him because he took my dad's kickboxing class at the Y. This is how like weird, networking is, right? And so I ended up meeting Scott one day in his office, like doing just an informational interview with him and telling him, I was really torn because I felt like I really loved this life planning side of things. And I really wanted to help people retire and send their kids to college. And I really wasn't that interested in like selling things that I didn't believe in. And that's when he taught me about fee-only financial planning. And that's when I learned what that was.
So the moral of this story is that your dad is a marriage and family therapist and a kickboxing coach.
He is a martial artist and is a 3rd-degree black belt and has been for like 35 years or something ridiculous. So that's how you get your foot in the door to financial planning, is you have like
fantastic
crazy connections, right? Like, and so that's why. And so actually the second firm that I got hired at was Scott's firm. So a position opened up at the company that he was at, Cahill Financial Advisors, and they brought me in for an interview. And both of my interviews, I was both companies that I kind of got started with, I was the only person they interviewed. So I feel really fortunate, to like just kind of, and I think that that's the power of networking. Like for me, it's always been about meeting people and forming great connections and relationships and showing that you're hardworking and dedicated and like willing to learn. And I was really ambitious and really wanted a chance. And these firms took a chance on me, which was really great.
It's amazing to hear all the great stories about how we all lucked into this profession. And that none of us had this like really standard path, and yet we all kind of found it and fell in love with it. So
absolutely.
So you get a job with your mentor. Sounds like that should be the greatest job ever. So what happened? Why are you not still at that firm? Kind of what was your progression there?
Yeah. So I really loved the people at Cahill Financial Advisors, and they were definitely like a little, kind of crazy family. And, but there wasn't a really clear path of how I could work with clients my own age there. And that was really a passion of mine. And Scott's business was really growing. So he was getting busier and needed me to be, he really needed somebody that could just be his right-hand person. And what was great was that I really got a chance to sit in on all his client meetings, learn how to run a meeting, work on financial plans, do all the follow-up work from the financial planning meeting. But I really wanted to work with younger clients, and most traditional firms are geared towards older clients or clients that have more assets or were just a little bit further along in their career. So I'm a millennial, he's a Gen Xer. So he had quite a few Gen X clients actually, which was really great. So I felt really fortunate to be able to work with a lot of clients that were a little bit younger than traditional clients. But around that time, I got on Twitter and I started following all these financial bloggers and learning about different companies that were out there. And I found out about this company called LearnVest, and they were a fintech startup. And I saw that they were hiring for a financial planner. They were looking for a CFP. And so I applied for this position, even though it was based in New York. And I wrote this cover letter that said I'd really like the opportunity to work remotely, and thought that they would never go for it. Like, who in New York is going to hire this random Minnesota girl that's like, I just really think what you're doing is awesome. And, here's what I could bring to the table. And sure enough, they hired me. And so that's how I started working at a startup. And I had no idea what I was getting into and the crazy hours that I would be working. But it gave me a lot of experience really quickly. And I got to work with amazing clients across the country that were, majority of them were really young, in their 20s, 30s, and 40s. And so I feel like I got kind of 5 years of financial planning experience smushed into a year, which was really great.
So I have a question that's going to make Scott, hopefully Scott, if you're listening, cover your ears for this. But if Cahill had the opportunity for you to be able to work with younger clients within that firm, do you think you would have stayed there, or do you think you would have been, or do you still think you would have left?
That's such a good question. I really think that I would have stayed, because I think that for me, it was so scary to go out on my own and start my own firm. And I would have loved the opportunity to do that in a safer, less risky way. I didn't really see myself launching my own firm until after I was at LearnVest and knew that I wanted to kind of transition out of the startup that I was at. And just because the workload was just really intense, and I really liked the people that I was working with at Cahill, and I really would have loved the opportunity to be able to figure out a way to work with clients my own age and also continue to be there.
So that is an answer that's going to make any experienced advisor with a firm cringe, I think. But I hope it's a little eye-opening that a lot of firms lose the best talent because they don't provide the opportunities that they're looking for, and just how powerful of a recruitment and retention strategy it is for the firm for just keeping younger advisors on staff is to open up some doors to allowing them to work with their peers and kind of do the work that they want to be doing with the clients they want to be doing it with, while, like you said, supporting some of the other clients within the firm. So you went to go work for LearnVest. It sounds like you were there around a year. So tell us about that experience and just how that went, because we've all heard a lot of rumors about LearnVest, and with the recent buyout and all of that, things over there have obviously changed. So what was that experience like?
So when I started, they were fee only, and they were geared towards women in their 20s to their 40s. So for me, that was a really good fit. I was really excited about coming on board and being able to work with younger clients, mainly women or independent women in couples. And it just, it was just a lot different than I expected. It was really intense hours. And a part of that is just that I was really naive to what working at a startup is like. I'm from the Midwest, and we go to work at 8 and we leave around 5, and no one cares what I'm doing at 7 p.m. on a Tuesday. And suddenly that wasn't the case, right? So the great thing about LearnVest was the people that I met. So the other financial planners that they hired were incredible people and are still some of my good friends today. And they were from all across the country, and they were super smart, really wonderful CFPs, great communicators, very analytical and personable. And I just felt like the team that they assembled was top notch. And then the other thing that was really fun was that I really became close with all of these amazing writers on the editorial staff. And it's some of those writers that actually helped me launch, my career as an entrepreneur, because they went on to other opportunities as well. After they left LearnVest, they became freelance writers for Forbes and for, working for companies like Business Insider. And they would reach out to me and say, "Hey, Sophia, I'd love to get a quote from a CFP. Are you interested in talking to me on this?" So I really feel like the relationships and the people that I met there were just incredible. And I look back at that and I'm really grateful for the experience that I got really quickly. But ultimately, I just burnt out. It was just too intense of an environment for me to be in, to be able to stay there for years.
So just to help lay out the timeline, we probably should have led with, you are how old now?
So I'm 31, and I started taking my CFP classes in 2006. I got hired at my first financial planning firm in 2007. So right before at the height of the market, I was hired in this profession. Was at Berger Financial Group for 2.5 years, went to Cahill Financial Advisors for 2 years, and then was at LearnVest for a year. So that was like spring of 2012 to spring of 2013. And then I launched my own firm, XYPN Planning, in May of 2013.
So you're sitting at LearnVest. It's on the tail end of kind of the time that you're there. Did you know you wanted to start your own firm? Like what was that like for you, kind of evaluating the different options that you had, knowing that you wanted to leave LearnVest and look for other opportunities, but kind of what did that look like for you?
So I was exploring the idea of starting my own firm for a while. And I had called you actually about 6 months prior and said, "Hey, this is something that I'm interested in doing. And I got your name from Michael Kitces. And how are you doing this?" Because at the time, I was just trying to talk to people that were doing this. I called Jude Boudreau. I called Brittany Castro. And I just was trying to find people that were interested, that were young or that were close to my age, that were working with younger clients. And it was something that I was really interested in, but I was terrified. And so I really wanted to leave LearnVest sooner, but I ended up staying a year just to bank a little bit more cash, to have my some of my stock options vest, to be able to get my year-end bonus. And I was really considering taking a full-time job at a traditional financial planning firm in Minnesota. And so I started interviewing at different companies, and I just wasn't excited about it. It just didn't feel like it was the right fit for me anymore, because I had this experience at the startup where I was working virtually with clients, and I realized I loved that. I loved being able to be location independent and work from anywhere. I loved being able to work with younger clients on their time, at a time that worked for them. And I just wanted to be in control of my time a little bit more and be able to set my client meetings, choose the clients I was working with, and really gear my practice towards working with younger clients. But again, I was so scared. So I went out with Scott. It was the day before my 29th birthday. And we were, he was still a great mentor of mine. And I was telling him about this company I interviewed for, and I just was not excited about it. And he was like, "Well, what else are you thinking?" And I just launched into this business plan of, I really want to work with young clients, and I want to do it on a monthly subscription model. And I really want to help people in their 20s and 30s. And I want to call it something like Gen Y planning, or something that has to deal with millennials and money. And I was so fired up about it that he finally looked at me and he said, "What's the worst thing that can happen?" And I started coming up with all these excuses, and he just stopped me and he said, "No, Sophia, the worst thing that can happen is you'll have to get a job in financial planning." And that was like what it took for me to just take a step back and be like, "Huh." And then he goes, "Which is exactly what you're thinking about doing right now. So why don't you just launch your own firm and do it for a few years?" And the other thing that he said, if it doesn't work out exactly the way you want it to, or if you don't have as many clients as you want, you're not making as much money as you want, you will have a lot of options in the future to merge your practice with another firm or to come on board at on a firm at a different level. And I had no idea how true that would be, because in the past 2 years, I have never received more job offers than I have in my entire life. It's just been insane how many people want you to come on board to their firm once you show that you're doing something unique.
That conversation that you had with Scott, it wasn't too long ago. You and I were having a conversation about that, and we ended up writing a blog post. We'll link to it in the show notes about redefining failure. And I think that that's really the key, is that what is failure? We're all scared of failing. We're scared of it not working. But then it's like, if the worst case scenario is that it doesn't really work out and you end up getting bought out by another firm, that ain't so bad.
Right. That's not the end of the world, Or and the other thing was if the worst thing that happened was a year from now, I decided, hey, I don't really like being a business owner. And, I dissolve the business, or whatnot. And I decide to take a job at another firm. That's fine. I'm in no worse shape than I was a year ago. I'm actually in better shape because I have all of this other experience and all these other things I can bring to the table that you learn very quickly when you're running your own business.
Well, and as a business owner now, wouldn't it be great to hire advisors that had some experience running their own firm, even if it was for a year or two, as opposed to only hiring advisors that had worked in the back office?
Right, exactly. I just feel like it's a totally different mindset. And then you just look at things so much differently when you're running your own business.
So one of the reasons the failure is not so bad is because you showcase this in a blog post, but it is not all that expensive to start a financial planning firm. This is not like opening a restaurant where you have to have hundreds of thousands of dollars in working capital and equipment and leases and things like that. So you kind of got, I think, pushed onto the scene in the financial advisory community with a blog post that you wrote on Michael Kitzis's blog, Nerd's Eye View. So tell us about that blog post in terms of just the topic and what that meant for you.
Yeah, so that was a really interesting experience because it was about 6 months after I had launched my own firm. Let's see, I launched in May, and then it was September when I wrote an article for Michael. And I remember emailing him and saying something like, hey, do you think that this is something that people might be interested in, of how I launched my firm and the different, things that I did, the different resources I used, people I reached out to, and technology tools I'm using. And he really liked the idea, but he said, but blog posts on my website are usually pretty, at least, I don't remember what he said, like 2,000 words or something like that.
More like 4,000 words for anybody that frequents Michael's blog, but yes, they're long.
Right. And so I was like, oh, don't worry, Michael, like brevity is not my strong suit. And again, my post turned out to be like 4,000 words that I sent over to him. And it's so crazy to me how many financial planners have reached out to me because of that blog post. I think I've had like over 200 financial planners reach out to me in the past, year and a half or year. And the majority, like 75% of them, reach out to me because they read that post. So
we probably should say that the topic was starting a financial planning firm of less than $10,000.
Right.
Which just shows, one, that you actually can start a firm for less than $10,000. A lot of us did it. I was in that same boat. But also just how much interest there is out there. So I hope the firm owners hear us when we say that if 200 people are contacting you after reading a blog post on how to start a firm for less than $10,000, they're junior planners or associate advisors or whatnot may be interested in doing this. And I hope that they pay attention to some of the reasons why many of us went off and started our own firm, because they may lose those folks to that.
Yeah. And I just think that, I feel so fortunate that so many people found that post and that it helped them launch their firms. A lot of people have said that they really used it as a guide in launching their own companies. And, Andrew McFadden wrote a post on his website that, about his experience launching his firm. And a lot of that was, what was really great about that was that he had read my post and kind of modeled some of the things that he was doing created a bunch of new resources and tools for other people, and ended up publishing that on his website as well. And so for me, that was great because it was a little update, because tech tools get so obsolete so quick. Cool that people are being able to, we're all giving resources to make this better and better, so that each iteration is better, right? That we're always in beta.
It's so true. And Andrew's post actually ended up getting syndicated over to Michael's blog. So we'll link to it in the show notes as well, because they're both really great examples of you don't have to have a ton of capital to start your own firm. I mean, I don't know. I remember overhearing a conversation recently at a national conference, and an older advisor was telling a younger planner, yeah, you're going to need at least $100,000 in the bank to start your own firm. And I just laughed, because did you have $100,000 in the bank? Because I certainly did not.
Well, and I think, it was like, I had saved up like $10,000 or $15,000. And I think it was like, I used that 10 grand over 6 months. I didn't just like plunk 10 grand into my business right away. And so, and I think that what's so interesting to me is a lot of those older advisors forget where they came from. They forget that when they started, they didn't have $100,000 that they were investing into their business. They were starting by like working with their friends who did not have millions of dollars either at the time. Their friends who had a rollover from their old 401k that was worth like $30,000 that they were managing, right? So I think that sometimes we lose sight of those things. And so for me, it was really exciting to show people that I'm not unique. Other people can do this. Other people can launch their own firms. And frankly, we need them. We need other people to work with young clients. My company is called XYPN, and there are millions of millennials, and I can't possibly work with all of them. So please, help us.
I've constantly told you that one day I hope to have to rename your firm to something more specific. But as of today, Gen Y is a niche, all 94 million of us. So one thing when we talk money in terms of starting the firm, you solved the startup cost equation, and we can throw in a budget of whatnot to show how you can start a firm for less than $10,000. But the other piece too is kind of on the personal expense side. So did you have another job or a side hustle or something that you were doing to kind of generate some income while you were starting your business?
Yeah. So I think the first thing that I try to tell people is like, get your personal finances in order before you launch your own firm, because you don't want to have to be worrying about really high living expenses when you're launching your own company. And then if there's anything that you can do part-time, that can be really helpful in slowing the savings account drain, right? So I really wanted to try to get to a point where I was just taking money out of my savings for business expenses as opposed to business expenses and living expenses. I was living with some family, and I paid rent, but it was really low rent at the time, which was helpful. So I really tried to limit my monthly expenses on the personal side to give myself more breathing room on the business side of things. So on the business side of things, I was able to do a couple things as like side hustles. So one, I was able to do financial writing and editing. I did a little bit for LearnVest actually when I first left. And then I picked up some other writing gigs as well. And so that helped, just a couple $100 here, a couple $100 there. And then I also got a job doing some like a live financial chat. And that was able to help me pay the bills as well. And so it was through doing those things that I was able to kind of slowly bring on my first clients and start to get a monthly revenue going from those ongoing clients as well. And then initial planning fees. So every time I'd land a new client, I would get an initial planning fee. And then the other thing is keeping things, keeping business costs low. So when I started, it was just me. I had no staff. I did everything. And I also didn't have an office space. And so if you don't have an office space and you don't have staff, you cut down on your business expenses, extremely low. And so I really tried to make this as profitable from the beginning as possible.
One of the things that I experienced in Montana, we live in God's country, as we like to say. Anytime I go home or I talk to friends, they go, "Oh, I'd love to live there. Oh, I'd love to do that." I go, "Why can't you?" And there's always excuses. There's always these great excuses. And usually it gets down to they don't really want it. And I experience that when talking with young planners that are looking at starting their own firm. They say, "Oh, I wish I could do that. But I have a mortgage. We're not willing to sell the house and move. We're not, we have to stay in a certain school district for the kids.
We want to have the fancy cars. We have to have the BMW." Yeah.
Exactly. And so that's where, you lived with family. I moved from a gorgeous 2-bedroom lofted. It was like a renovated loft with granite countertops. It was gorgeous. It was like my dream condo. And I moved into a studio, and it was like, how do we cut down? Got rid of a car, was able to walk to, I had an office because I was all old school for a little while there. But how do you handle the personal expense? I know personally, I cut my budget, my personal expenses in half. From when I decided to launch my firm to when I actually launched my firm, my personal expenses got cut in half. And that's probably the biggest piece that you've got to figure out. And something that you obviously figured out to be able to, how do we cut expenses, add a little bit of income to kind of cover that? And then we just have to worry about building the business.
And I think that you make a really great point that I think that you can tell pretty quickly from a conversation you're having with a planner that wants to launch their own firm, whether they're willing to make those sacrifices or whether they're not. And the ones that really want to make this business work are willing to say, I'm willing to cut back on some other areas to do what it takes for the first year or so, knowing that they're going to be able to build something really great that's going to be able to be this really great asset for them in the future and produce income for them in the future. But because of those sacrifices that they're willing to make, that first 6 months to a year in business.
So I'm going to try to make everybody really jealous real quick. Where are you currently sitting for this interview?
So I'm in Minneapolis right now, but
okay.
I was just hanging out by the lake the hour before.
So you're in Minneapolis today. I'm betting you haven't spent more than a couple months total in Minneapolis during 2015.
Yes, that is a very good assessment. So I just got back from Barcelona with my mom. So I went to Dallas for the Next Gen gathering. From Dallas, I left for Barcelona and I attended a conference that was all location independent entrepreneurs there. And then the second week of that, I decided to spend 2 weeks there because it's Barcelona and it's beautiful. And so the second week I was there, my mom came and joined me and then we hung out. And so I've been back for about a week and then I'm home I had to be home for at least 2 weeks because I have jury duty. Cross your fingers because I haven't been called in yet. But then after that, my next trip is August 9th. I leave for LA. And so I'll be in LA for 10 days. And then from there, I'm going to visit a friend in Montreal for 5 days. And
then you have a trip to Thailand coming up?
Right. But first I have FinCon and the XYPN conference. So if you're not going to that, you should be going to that. Anybody who's listening. That's in Charlotte in September, which I'm super pumped about. And they're back to back. So you can do both, which is great. So first I go to San Diego and I speak at a conference there. And then I head to Charlotte for a week. And then I think I'll be around for a couple weeks. And then I think I'm going to spend the month of October in Thailand for another location independent entrepreneur conference.
So I'm making you tell us your travel schedule simply because people tell me it can't be done, that you can't travel at will and run a business and all of this. So you've used the term location independent a couple of times. Tell us what that means to you, because I'm not sure that's a term that most advisors have heard before.
Yeah, so to me, that means that even if you have a home base, that you have the ability to work from anywhere with an internet connection. So my practice is entirely paperless. Is all of my systems I use are all online. They're all in the cloud, and so I can work literally from any coffee shop, anybody's house that has an internet connection. And so it really makes me mobile. Another term that you'll hear used is digital nomad. And this has become more popular in certain communities. So like travel bloggers will work and live anywhere and travel and blog about it. And I first kind of got that idea about 4 or 5 years ago when I went to the World Domination Summit, and that was in Portland. And it's a kind of this group of people, and a lot of them are working and living anywhere, from anywhere, and doing interesting things online. And the whole theme of the conference is, how do we live a remarkable life in a conventional world? And so for me, that really meant that I wanted to stop living for my 2 weeks of paid vacation.
It's amazing how nice it is to, when my folks come in town, to not have to take a vacation day to hang out with them and have to wait to see them until 5 o'clock. I don't think we fully appreciate, even now that we've achieved what we'll call location independence and flexibility of schedule. Sometimes it's hard to even appreciate it because you forget just what that was like to live for those 2 weeks, because that's what we did.
Yeah. And also that, like, our businesses don't stop because we're traveling. It's like, remember when you had a job and you had to get like all of your work done before you left, and then when you came back, you had like a ton of work to do because you had just taken a week off, right? And I don't feel that way anymore, because when I was in Barcelona, like, I would wake up, have breakfast with my mom. She would go sightseeing for a little bit. I would meet, a friend of mine. We'd work from a coffee shop for like 2 or 3 hours. Then we'd go to lunch. My mom and I would meet in the afternoon to go sightseeing for a few hours, and then head up to the pool on the rooftop for a couple hours, and then, go back to our hotel room, shower, get ready to go out for tapas that night. And to me, that was awesome. Like, I want more of my life to be like that. And so I've really tried to set up my life that it's like that. And one of the things that I'll tell you is that I think a lot of people don't realize is you can actually, my most profitable month was when I was hanging out with a friend in Atlanta for the month of March.
That's incredible.
That was my first 5-figure month. And I was hanging out with Paula Pant, who's a financial blogger and also location independent. And we would get up and bust our butts working during the day, and take a break and have lunch together, and then work for a few more hours and go to dinner and talk, have these great business conversations, and come back home and, drink wine and hang out. Or sometimes one of us would hop back online and do a couple hours of work in the evening. But just being able to have that flexibility, like, and people couldn't understand. They'd say like, "Oh, so you're on vacation in Atlanta?" I was like, "No, not really." Like, "Oh, so you're moving to Atlanta?" No, I'm just kind of like living my life in Atlanta for the month of March. Like, sometimes we go to the Coke Museum, and another day I'm going to go like jogging in Piedmont Park. And another day I'm going to go to Trader Joe's and buy groceries and have a client call, like, it's just all of those things just happen. And so for me, that has been, I like to call them workcations. Like, my life is a series of workcations.
So I know some listeners are thinking that sounds amazing. And then others are thinking like, I don't love to travel that much. I'm somebody who skis 80 to 100 days a year. Some people think that sounds amazing, and other people think that sounds awful.
I think it sounds cold.
It is cold, and that's okay. I'd rather be cold than hot. But what the kind of central theme there, though, is that by working virtually, it opens up the ability for you to do what it is that makes you happy. It allows me to do what makes me happy, which is ski a lot. And for somebody else, it may be spending more time at home with the kids, or it may be travel, or spending time at home, going back and seeing the grandparents, like whatever that is. But no one, plenty of people tell me, I wish I could work virtually. No one has ever come up to me and gone, I work virtually, but I really, really wish I was tied to a desk from 9 to 5. That would be awesome.
Right. And you look at people, so like Mary Beth Storjahan, who's in our mastermind group, she's on maternity leave right now. Like, she just had a baby last week, but guess what? She still has monthly financial planning fees coming in. Like, her income is not like going down significantly because she's not taking on any new clients for a month. Like, she still has income coming in. And I think that that's another thing that she didn't even realize when she started setting up her business the way that she did, and the way that all of us did, was that in our mastermind group, is that like, wow, we're still making money because of these things, these systems that we've put in place, and these things that we've set up, and the relationships that we've built with our clients. And to me, that's really cool and interesting. And so now she's getting the flexibility and the time that she needs to, be there with the baby and be a good mama.
Yeah, listeners may not know, I have an 11-month-old coming up on 1 year. Oh my goodness, he's about to walk. He's getting big. And I kind of experienced that same thing almost a year ago now, which was wanting to be home more, not wanting to have to, do a ton of in-person meetings, and now that he's big enough to go to daycare, I want to be able to pick him up at 3:30 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon and not have to wait till I'm done with work at 5. And maybe I work in the evening or maybe some on the weekends, because 1-year-olds don't understand weekends yet. So like you can build that flexibility, and working virtually is such an awesome tool to be able to support the work and that kind of work-life balance that we're all seeking.
Yeah. And I talked to an awesome term life insurance agent the other day who's part of the Dynamite Circle, which is this location independent entrepreneurial group that I'm involved in. And he said that last year he took his wife and their 1-year-old kiddo to the conference in Bangkok. And he's like, yep, we spent a month in Thailand. It was awesome. And, I had realized that it was a limiting belief of mine that you couldn't like have kids and travel. And then I saw these other people doing it. And I was like, I want to do that. Why aren't we doing that? And so it was really cool to talk to him and hear how, he and his wife and kiddo were still able to just travel and go on these, go to the great conferences that he wanted to go to and still attend those and still get to see, his kid. And that didn't stop him from having that balance in his life.
And as financial planners, I think we can all agree that we tend to be very, very old school in pretty much every aspect of our business. And so it's awesome to get outside of the planning profession, because I think we have so much to learn from, whether it's the blogging community at FinCon, right, or, this location independent entrepreneurial group who even knew what that meant. Hanging out with Dynamite Circle in Bangkok, like just to go see how other people are doing it, and to understand that if a term life insurance salesman can do it, a financial advisor can do it. And other right, service-based businesses, these are not just web designers. These are folks that are running legit businesses that are doing really cool things. And again, some people may say the thought of Bangkok for a month sounds awful, but what is it that gets you really excited? And then how do we build the business to support whatever it is that makes you really excited and makes you want to live your great life?
Exactly.
So you've mentioned our mastermind group a couple of times, so it's not something we've talked about on the show. So just give us a quick rundown, because you actually were the one that pulled the mastermind group together. So just let's fill listeners in a little bit on what we're talking about there and whether or not you think it's a good idea for them to form their own.
Yes, to all of that. So if you are interested in starting a mastermind group, I highly recommend it. What I did was I just pulled together people that I knew who were kind of in a similar point in their businesses. And so mastermind groups can really vary. But for me, what was really helpful is I really wanted people who were in a similar spot where they had recently launched financial planning firms. And so we had all launched within like a year of each other, which was really great. And then we all were fee only. And that was something else that I thought was, that was a really nice synergy for us. And then we all really focus a lot of our energy on marketing online, building up a newsletter list, building an online presence, and working with clients virtually. So that's been such an amazing experience for me. It took us, we had a little bit of change in group members as we kind of got this synergy between the four of us, which I think it works so well. And you might have that happen too. Sometimes it takes a little while to find the right fit. But what I've found and what's been so impactful for me is that I think that when you're launching your own firm, sometimes you feel like you're on an island. You feel like, gosh, I have all these questions. I don't know who to ask. And that's what your mastermind group is for, because a lot of times they have the same question. And I remember really early on, I was spending about 5 hours a week trying to email back and forth with prospective clients about when we could talk for a half hour. Like, when can we just set up a half an hour prospective client call? And Mary Beth was going through the same frustration. And so instead of us both going out on our own and researching, well, which online scheduling system should we use? Because there's like a dozen of them out there. Instead, we just asked you, Alan, and we said, what are you using? What's the thing that you have on your website? And you basically said, you got to get Schedule Ones. It's so easy. This is how you do it. I can help you set it up. And you were able to just give us a tech resource that was $20 a month to save us 5 hours a week. And so it's things like that your mastermind group can help with. I think in our situation, what's been really unique about our group is how much we've all gained by being a part of this group, like how quickly all of us have progressed. So I feel like certain roadblocks or hurdles that other financial planners have faced, we've really helped each other overcome because we've used each other as resources. And we've referred clients to each other. We've referred each other for speaking gigs. We've helped each other get press. And we've helped each other get more recognition for different awards or within the financial planning community. And so to me, it's just been insane, the power of our mastermind group. And I think that the really successful ones that I've seen, I've heard very similar stories of they just can't believe how much they've all gained from being a part of that.
So one of these days we'll do an episode just on kind of structuring a study group and how that looks. But the way our mastermind group is set up is that we do share wins every week. And we talk about the top 3 wins from the previous week. It could be getting quoted in the media or getting a new client or figuring out a new process. And I remember when we first formed the group, I was in kind of a bit of a business rut and just felt like I wasn't doing anything interesting. And I remember listening to all of the other members and y'all were so amped up and doing such awesome stuff that I was like, I better do something cool because I got to have something to bring to the table next week. And also what you realize are the wins that we don't even celebrate. And you do things and it kind of just like, it's like, yay. And then it kind of dies. And then to remember back of your last week and be like, oh no, this happened. And it was really cool. And to be able to celebrate that with other members is huge. And just kind of reminding us why we do what we do. Why are we in this business? Why do we do the work with clients? And why do we own our own business? Because it's not all fun and games. It's not all easy, but I think we all agree that it's absolutely worth it, at least at this point.
Right. And sometimes your win can be something like, I got a bookkeeper. And you can't your friends don't get that, like when, like your normal buddies, like they don't really understand. And your mastermind group friends are like, thank God, that's such a great feeling. And so sometimes those wins are something, when you're quoted in the media and you're like, yeah, I was just in Forbes, that it's really exciting for each other, but that might not be as exciting for somebody else, or what's investment news, your other friends of yours might say that aren't in the profession. And so I think just to be able to share your wins with people that so intimately understand that that's a really exciting, really big deal makes it even more fun, because I think sometimes other friends or family don't really get that or might not understand, why that's a win. And then also, we share, what are you struggling on and who can help you with that? And that's been huge. And sometimes it's just having 3 other people think about things differently than you do and come up with a solution that you would have never thought of. That's just perfect.
So investment news, if you're listening, Eric Roberge, Beyond Your Hammock.
Yeah.
2016. I actually just assumed that was going to be a 1-year only deal because I didn't know there were more than 40 of us that were under 40. In financial planning. So it's great to see there's at least 80 with no repeats. So maybe we'll get another 40 people for next year. And
they got over 1,000 nominees each year. That's what was so insane to me. I was like, who are these 1,000 people? Will they please come to conferences so we can meet and hang out?
It's so true. They can join our XYPN radio community and come hang out. Cause honestly, I think when we both, it's so true.
Friends,
they're hiding inside of firms. I sometimes I feel like younger advisors aren't allowed out of the house. They're required to stay back at their office and, manage things while the boss is at the conference. It's you got to come out, whether it's to the Next Gen gathering or XYPN's conference or FinCon. We do meetups around the country,
Yeah.
like come out to something and just come hang out, because it feels very lonely. And I'm sure from the flip side, for the folks that aren't coming out, it's even more lonely and isolating to not realize just how many of us are out there that are under 40 that are doing things a little differently and having fun doing it.
Yeah, and I just think we're maybe louder than the others, and so then that's why.
That
you
is
know?
that is absolutely the case. We're just better at talking about ourselves, which is the truth is that's actually the power of social media, and it's how many of us kind of got our foot in the door from an advisory perspective, was just getting on Twitter and meeting people like Michael Kitces. So for folks that don't know, Michael Kitces is the other co-founder of the XYPN Network. We met on Twitter. That's where we really got our start. You talked about meeting Michael and finding out about LearnVest on Twitter. So it's like, if you're not on Twitter, get on Twitter. Come hang out.
Yeah, that's actually one of my biggest pieces of advice for young planners, is that's where the press is. So if you want to get press, if you're wondering like, how does the XY Planning Network get all this press, or how does Gen Y Planning get press? It's because we're active on Twitter and we're getting to know people and we're retweeting their stuff and we're talking to financial bloggers and we're doing guest posts for them and we're going to FinCon and we're showing up and we're meeting them and all our Twitter friends in real life. And so I really think that that's like one of my biggest pieces of advice, is just get on Twitter and start having those conversations.
So one of the other projects that you've been working on, or I guess that you worked on and recently launched, was an ebook. So tell us a little bit about, one, the ebook itself, and then two, how that, I guess, what has come of that, and if it has been worth the effort that it took to write an entire book.
Yeah. So an ebook is something that I wanted to do for a long time, and I'm really glad that I did it. And it started as I had this idea for, probably a year and a half. And so my ebook is called What You Should Have Learned About Money But Never Did, a Gen Y Guide to Empowered Personal Finance. And I really wanted it to be a resource for people who are young and thinking about their money and want to be smarter with their money, but don't really know where to start. Like, do I start by paying down debt, or do I start by building up savings? What do I do for retirement? I have a 401k. What's this Roth IRA I keep hearing about? And just helping to like educate my clients on some of those things, or potential clients and my Gen Y Planning readers on what goes into financial planning. Like, how do I even think about financial planning? Because many people just think it's about, your money is just about paying down debt, building up savings. And as financial planners, we know that there's tax planning, estate planning, insurance, all of these other things that are included. So I really wanted to educate more of Gen Y about what financial planning is. And then also the other ways that I look at that I look at financial planning that's a little bit different. So I really want it to be focused on people's goals and values, and having it be about, using your money to live a great life, using your money in a way that's really important to you. And then some fun things as well, like which credit card is the best to help, maximize your credit card rewards. And, how can we figure out which student loan repayment plan is right for you? And so those are some of the things that I really try to bring to the table with my clients. And so I had been writing about those on the blog for a really long time. And so the ebook is really a collection of my best blog posts that are put together. And my content manager helped me put all that together. My associate planner helped, read through all the entire book and make sure that all the CFP things made sense. And so I put that together, and so far it's been pretty successful. People have been really enjoying it. I've been getting some great reviews on Amazon. So you can buy it on Amazon. If you type my name into the Google search, it'll pull up. And it's $4.99. So I really wanted to be able to offer people a really low cost way to learn more about what financial planning for millennials is, what they should be doing with their money. And then hopefully that'll lead to some potential clients of people that want to work with me one-on-one.
I've heard you say before that your goal when you launched your firm was to help 100 clients, but reach 1,000 people. And
right.
The ebook is a great example of a way to leverage your expertise to be able to share that with that 1,000 people without having to work with them one-on-one.
Right. And I really see the Gen Y Planning brand like building out courses as well. So one thing I'd really like to do is, now that I have these higher priced one-on-one services where I'm working directly with clients on an ongoing basis, and now that I have this ebook, which is a very kind of low barrier to entry, just learning more about, getting better educated about your money, I really want to build out these things in between. So I would love to launch some courses, at the end of this year or next year to help millennials with their money and make them very specific on certain topics. And that's an area that we haven't seen a lot of financial planners explore very much, but I think is becoming very popular in the online space in terms of, you see people with podcast courses, you see people with courses on, on coaching and on all these things. And I think that it makes sense that there's a lot of millennials that like learning that way. And I think that would be a really great way to reach a whole, new group and to help me really reach those 1,000 people.
Absolutely. So there is like a whole list of things that I wanted to talk about, and we're running up on our time of an hour. This has been so much fun. And one of the things is, I know you tell folks how many clients you have, which is, how many clients are you currently at?
33.
And most people will hear you say that you charge $100 to $200 a month. And for whatever reason, their math generally goes to 100 and they go, wow, Sophia Bera is only making $3,500 a month. How is she eating? She's been doing this for forever and she's a rock star, and yet she's only making, $36,000 a year or $40,000 a year, whatever that number ends up being. So one of the things that I'm putting it out there on the air to hold you to it, is that you're currently on pace to cross six figures in 2015, which is exciting. It's a huge milestone. This will be your, second actual full calendar year in business.
Right.
And this will be the first year that you cross six figures, and with an AUM of what currently?
Less than $1 million.
Less than $1 million. So generally, if I say less than $1 million AUM, people think, oh, you make $10,000. So we're going to have Soph back on end of the year, beginning of next year, to literally go through the numbers. And don't worry, I did actually ask her about this beforehand to be sure I could volunteer for this before she opens up all of her books to us. But to literally go through how she makes money, because you're correct that if you have 35 clients at $100 a month, that would be $3,500 a month. But there are a lot of other income sources from clients, as well as some side hustles and things like that, in ways that you make money to the point that you're going to be able to cross that six-figure mark, which is awesome.
Yeah,
so
I'm really excited.
I'm going to go ahead and put it out there, so you have to do it. Now people know.
I know.
And you have to hit six figures, because if you're at like 98,000, it's going to be really embarrassing.
Pissed. Yeah, it will be embarrassing for all of us. No, I'm really excited because my first 6 months in business, so 2013, I hit about 20 grand. And then my first full year in business, I made more than I did at my last full-time job. And so that was my big goal. And then this year it's to hit six figures. So far so good. I'm on track, but that means I need to keep kind of consistently taking on new clients every month. And I'm really excited. I can't wait to come back. This has been so much fun.
So the one question we always make folks answer before they leave the show is, if you could go back and talk to 28, 29-year-old Sophia before you launched your firm, when you were still absolutely terrified of what this was all going to look like, if you could tell yourself one thing, what would that one thing be that you wish you had known then?
Just start. Because it's so scary to just start, but just start. Because I just think, man, if I would have started a few years before, think about how much farther I would have been, along now. And I think that to just really think about replacing fear with faith, that it's going to work out and that you're going to figure it out. And there were so many things that I didn't know. And if you would have told me, oh, you're going to have to deal with all of these other crazy things, who knows if I would have done it. And so I think the most important thing is just getting started, and you'll figure it out along the way.
I totally agree. I wish that we had a recording of our conversation that we had back in October of 2012. That's how long ago it was. I wish we had because people hear the confident Sophia, they hear the confident Alan, we have this thing all figured out, and we've always had it figured out. And I can encourage listeners that we still don't have it all figured out. We're still working on it. But I just remember how terrified you sounded on the phone, and me hearing you and just being like, oh my gosh, you have all the tools. You have everything that you need. You just need to have the confidence in yourself. It would actually be fun to go back so people could hear the lack of confidence then up to the confident Sophia today, because it's definitely been well earned.
Well, and I really appreciate your words of encouragement, because when I said to you, I really think that I want to do this, and you started hearing about what I was interested in doing and my situation and my ideas for my firm, you were so supportive and encouraging. And I just really appreciate that. And I really try to be that way with new people now that are wanting to launch their own firms, to just be really supportive and encouraging of what they're doing. And so I really thank you for giving me that little push that I needed as well, because it was finally, I finally had the final shove from Scott off the ledge, to do my own thing. But it was a lot of people beforehand that were really giving me the confidence that I needed to be able to say, no, really, like, you can do this.
So we have it recorded. I had a small piece to play in the launch of Gen Y Planning.
Yes,
so
you did.
I that was my pleasure. Well, so thank you so much for taking the time to be on. This has been awesome. I am really excited to have you back on. I suspect you will be a frequent visitor of our little show here. So thank you for taking the time to be on today.
Yeah, you're so welcome. I can't wait to come back. Thanks again.
I hope you enjoyed that interview as much as I did. Sophia really does have an inspirational story, and we will definitely have her back on at the end of the year to walk through how she's going to hit that 6-figure revenue goal in her second year in business, all while working with clients in their 20s and 30s who we were told, couldn't be profitable clients. We would never be able to build a profitable business model working with younger clients, and she's proving that is absolutely wrong. And you can definitely check out all of the resources that we mentioned during the show at XYPlanningNetwork.com/3. Now, before we go, I want to give another shout out to our launch week sponsor, Low Load Insurance Services. I have personally worked with Low Load for over 4 years now, and have to say that they are an incredibly valuable member of your financial planning team. Now, as fee-only advisors, we just can't get access to insurance. We can't transact insurance for our clients on a fee-only basis. And telling our clients to go shop for coverage with local insurance agents certainly isn't ideal. It's not something any of us really want to do. I have found that working with LLIS allows me to provide a much higher level of service in regards to insurance planning than I could ever provide on my own, since they have a growing team of over 16 insurance specialists that know the ins and outs of the life insurance, disability insurance, annuity, and long-term care business. Now, if you'd like to learn more, you can go to LLIS.com. You can see the link in our show notes at XYPlanningNetwork.com/3. And also be sure to tune in for episode 5 for an in-depth interview with Mark Maurer, the CEO of LLIS. Thanks again so much for tuning in today. Definitely join us for the rest of launch week as we continue to go through these amazing interviews and shows this week. Thanks so much.
You're not alone, and you're not crazy. It's scary starting, building, and growing your own financial planning firm. And that's why we put together a free private community just for you, the Cutting Edge Financial Planner. Go to XYPlanningNetwork.com/VIP or text XYPN Radio to 33344 and join a network of thousands ready to change the lives of Gen X and Gen Y clients.